is a big deal. What's...
This is a big deal. This is a handmade, custom-made guitar by Jean Larrivee, who's a supermaster luthier who taught...
I saw people's heads just pop up that you have a Jean Larrivee handmade guitar right here.
And it's Madagascar rosewood, and it's got a Swiss spruce top, and he's the neck is customized for my little hand. I thought it was going to be bigger, but and then he said, no, you need a smaller guitar. He says he's going to give me a big sound, but with the
so you have this guitar that you had a guitar for like 30 years or something.
38 years.
So that was handmade by this guy.
Yeah.
It was recently stolen. Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking.
And then you've got a new one, and you're opening here at the Wild Goose Festival for the first time.
With this new guitar.
It's just so awesome. Okay, so that's where it all started. And you were putting stickers on the new case.
I was putting stickers on the new case so that when I cross over the border, because the insurance company has all the documents saying that everything's paid, and it's all, because they paid for everything.
Now, you're in the United States, and when people say, when I'm going to cross over the border, that starts making people nervous. You better tell them it's the northern border, and then everybody's more comfortable with that.
Okay, the northern border. This is made in America. So, Oxnard, California. Now I'm crossing the border. Oxnard, California?
Yeah. Oxnard,
California.
Right on.
Really?
You could have brought it.
Saved a lot of trouble.
You know the company then. Yeah, he's just opened a big factory in Oxnard, California. And so when I cross the border, it's American.
To Canada.
To Canada. They're going to say, is that American? Did you buy it here? No, but it smells really fresh and everything. So I was putting all these old stickers on my new guitar case.
To make it
Trying to
fast.
stink it up a little bit.
And hoping the person that stops me, if they decide to look at it, has
I can't imagine how sophisticated the noses are of the border patrol in Canada.
That's the point.
But I don't think they're going to smell fresh after having been opened up and out here in the Wild Goose Festival environment. There's no better radio than a guy smelling a guitar. That's really the ultimate radio experience. That is fantastic. All right, so Momma, you are also the runner-up to Canada's Indigenous Songwriter of the Year.
Yes.
This year.
This year.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was a real honor there. It's just to be nominated because I mean, there's a lot of awful stuff, the legacy and the continuing experience of Indigenous people in Canada and in the United States. Mm-hmm. But there's also this incredible thing happening. 50% of the Indigenous population is below 25 years old. And there's a paradox, is that we have the reserve system, but when you're on the reserve system, you don't have to pay rent, so you have all these artists that can do their art and don't have to pay rent. So there's that aspect of it. I mean, you have to have a place to live, and I mean, some of the places are falling down. Mm-hmm. But the idea that when you go to the res, there's a paradoxical aspect to it. Now, I'm not status, I don't have a res, so I have to pay rent. So
you're not part of the casino money?
I'm not part of the casino money.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that casino money. I won't. I've been offered casino games,
really?
And I won't take them. No.
It's quite a gamble.
Yeah.
That's not even funny. It's not even worth a boo. There's something you just let
Hey, audience, throwing things. Go get
we normally do this in a private studio where we boo each other.
Fix your bad puns.
Momma, you are interesting in a lot of ways, and your musical ability is part of what's interesting. We were sitting around that campfire, and you opened this guitar, playing it for the second time, maybe the first time, strumming it, tuning it up, just yesterday or 2 days ago, and it has a magnificent sound. But you have a more magnificent sound than that guitar. It's really great. When you write music, what song are you going to do for us today?
I think I might do Mr. Businessman's Blues because it was inspired by the outrage that Amos felt because he was paying attention.
All right,
if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention.
That's great. That's great.
Right?
Yeah. I feel like in one eye should be squinty because you're outraged if you're paying attention. The other eye should be open really wide because it's so wonder-filled. And that's the problem, right? We should be outraged because the potential is so great. It's wasteful, isn't it? Mm-hmm. What people do with each other and how we live in the world, it's just ridiculous.
What we do to the earth.
What we do to the earth and how we do it.
Yeah.
Momma D, would you bring us the song Mr. Businessman over
yes,
there?
I will. Now there's on my CD, which my selling team
Now
here,
we're talking. Now we're talking.
which is going to pay for this trip. My CD is a good hour of music, and it's analog with live musicians really playing instruments on it. There's no synthesizers on this CD. There's a farfisa, which is a particular keyboard that's kind of neat actually. But everything on there is real instruments and real people playing.
It's all people making sounds.
People making
not ones
music.
and zeros making sounds.
Yeah, and they're all session A, session players, and that's my band. So if you want me to come back next year and you get $20,000, I'll come down with a full band.
There we go. There we go.
How
That's
much?
the challenge.
How much are you selling those CDs for?
They're $20.
Okay.
American?
Yes.
Okay, 20 US.
In pesos?
Well, I don't know. Maybe that funny Canadian money with the queen on it. I don't know. Danny, could you roam around with those in your hand in case somebody wants to buy them? Because here's the thing, we're going to be rotating a bunch of people through, and I'm afraid that you'll forget about how great Momma D is. And while you're hearing this wonderful sound from the guitar and from Momma D, you're going to think to yourself, I want that to keep happening. So then you're going to buy a CD right then.
Yep.
Cash only?
Cash only. Oh, there's trouble with people writing checks if they're from the States and me cashing them in America.
Yeah.
It's a real weird thing.
Okay.
You have to cash the mother.
So cash or the equivalent of, somehow. I don't even know what that phrase means, but go up there and...
Okay. Now imagine there's a
Momma
guitar
D.
player.
Imagine there's an
incredible guitar player who's actually right now touring, now that his kids have got older, because he became a widow and then he had to stop touring. So now he's touring with Leonard Cohen.
Really?
So imagine he's letting it rip. This up a little bit. Tell me, Mr. Businessman, how does your money grow? How much sweat is on your brow? How weary are your bones? How much toil to dig this earth, to slash in slave control? When you've used up this great resource, do you plan to eat your gold? Tell me, Mr. Businessman, is business going well? Can you put your best foot forward as you walk your earthbound hell? Souls are bought and muscles gnawed and wishes don't come true. You get rich upon our backs and say it's what we choose. It's not my choice. Tell me, Mr. Businessman, tell me what's so rough. What is it that you're giving up that seems to mean so much? How many dollars can you spare? How many acres will divide? How many will be sacrificed before you're satisfied? Tell me, Mr. Businessman, tell me what's so hard? Do you have to pay an army to guard the fence around your yard? Oh, yeah, innocent by scale, you've only gardeners for your lawns. Can you make it right? 'Cause it's the lesser of courts.
Mama D, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mama D.
Mama D, well, I just want you to sing One Tin Soldier with all of us later. You probably know that song, don't you?
Please.
So great. That is, isn't that fabulous? Hey, I don't know if you've met Tim Sorens yet, but you're about to. Tim Sorens is a co-author of a book with 3 other people that do very interesting things. Are you Canadian?
No.
No? Boy, the Canadians got a lot going on. Do you know that? Do you know how much goes on with the Canadians?
I like the
Are there Canadians here? Like they are understated
right on.
Canadians.
They're happy.
They're happy. They're
Healthy.
Oh, there's good things going on in Canada. There's good things going on in Canada, but there's also good things going on all over the world. And this book called The New Parish is trying to have people pay attention to their neighborhoods, isn't it?
Yeah, what we're discovering is that while there's a lot of hand-wringing right now amongst the church of decline, loss of cultural influence, on and on. But if you shift your perspective a little bit and look at the neighborhood level, there are beautiful things happening all over the place. So what we were trying to do, myself and Paul and Dwight, was to capture some of those stories and begin to reflect quite practically of what God might be doing at the neighborhood level.
Mm-hmm. The subtitle is How Neighborhood Churches Are Transforming Mission, Discipleship, and Community. When you think neighborhood, the kind of work that you guys are doing, you do it both at a personal level, but you also do it at an academic level, right? Like these are people that are running training schools and training people and doing studies. Like you're paying attention at a whole different level than most of us who just sort of walk down our street and try to remember the name of the guy that lives 4 houses down, right, or whatever. What are you noticing about how people understand neighborhood? Like, do people mean their street? Do they mean their city? How are people thinking about it?
It's a good question.
That's why I'm a radio host.
Yeah.
I ask good questions.
You majored in good questions.
You don't get this long thing if you don't ask good questions.
Well, Doug, that's why we like the word parish, is because a neighborhood can be a little confusing for folks. In an urban setting, a neighborhood's probably going to be more or less the parish. But in a suburban context, the whole suburb might be the parish. In a village, in a small town, that whole small town might be the parish. How we define the parish is a geographic area that's big enough to live a lot of life in. Live, work, play. So not just a cul-de-sac, not just a street. It's an ecosystem, if you will. But small enough to be known. So a city would be too big to be a parish. But a neighborhood level, a village, potentially even a whole suburb, we could think of as a parish.
So there are whole traditions of Christian religious organizing built around a parish model. So when our Catholic and Anglican, sometimes Lutheran friends hear that word, they're like, hey, those young evangelicals are starting to pay attention and speak our language, right? You also mean something a little different than what has traditionally been meant by some religious traditions about a parish. Is that right?
I think that's fair. I mean, it's a little tricky to call the word the new parish. It elicits
Which
some
is the name of the
questions.
book. The
Yes,
New
it is.
Parish, available in the bookstore.
That's right. That's well done. There's a bunch of different things we think that are happening. One is sometimes in some faith traditions, when you think parish, they actually just are talking about the church building or the congregation. For us, we're talking about the actual definable neighborhood where we're trying to, or parish, where we're trying to join in God's holistic renewal. So it's kind of inside out. It's not just the church congregation, it's the whole of the neighborhood.
Whether people are participants or not.
Exactly. So it flips upside down a little bit of church leadership. Instead of just saying, you are my congregation and I'm supposed to be just about you. What we're seeing happen in a really, I think, beautiful way is church leaders are thinking, I want to kind of recover the idea of being the priest, the pastor, for this entire place, whether they're part of my congregation or not. I'm going to try and knit together a team that's pursuing the common good for all of y'all. And maybe kind of the closest to the team is the congregation, but that changes things a bit, as you can imagine.
What happens when people are resistant to that notion, or if they're in what you would consider to be your parish and they're like, whoa, I don't want to be in this parish?
Well, that's where gravity is very helpful.
Gravity?
Yeah, gravity, because if
You throw people out windows or something?
I'm thinking suits like specials.
No, what I mean by that is, I mean, if the three of us decided right now, in a sense, that we wanted to kind of think of ourselves as leading in the parish in Hot Springs, North Carolina.
Or this tent.
Or this tent.
Tent's our parish.
And
there's our flock.
Chris Smith, who's quite lovely, was like, oh, I want to be a part of that congregation. But there's lots of folks who are like, oh, it sounds kind of weird. No, thank you. Well, then that wouldn't say that we couldn't seek to love and care for and be in relationship with you all. It's not saying that we're asking you for money or whatever, but we would, I think, us as a team, be trying to discern the desire for the common good amongst all of us, and then try and knit together a fabric of care for this lovely tent we're in.
All right, so it sounds like what you guys are wanting us to all think about is how not only to consider what is your life or faith or community wanting to do, but how can you, as a life and faith and community, partner with other people who are in your parish to help them accomplish what it is that they want to do.
Absolutely.
So you're not starting with your agenda and how you disperse that to the needy or to the interested, but how do you partner with people on what they're doing?
Yeah.
That seems like a whole different skill set.
Yeah,
who helps someone learn that skill set? That seems, different.
Well, it is tricky. It's going to be a shift, I think, in how we understand things. Paul and Dwight and I have the honor of leading a certificate program at the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology, and so that's one angle. And we're working with a lot of different seminaries and denominations we're living in a very adaptive age. No one says, here is exactly what you do. You don't turn the crank anymore. So we hope that this book and some of the things that we're seeing will give us clues as to how we might begin to learn and lead.
In your experience, is it possible for anyone to develop those skills if they haven't bought and read this book? Do you think that's possible? Just in your experience.
We've been at
this work for a while without the book.
Without the book.
Yeah.
So it's theoretically possible.
But don't try.
Not encouraged.
Don't
no.
try. Yeah,
you could get in big danger if you don't buy the book.
Save yourselves
You're
a
going to
lot
need
of
to.
trouble.
That's right.
Well, congratulations. It's a great book. Do you have a illustrative story of a people that the book is full of these stories? Is there some that's on the front of your mind right now that you think would be good to tell us of how people have paid attention?
I have a story with a transition.
A story with a transition. Great. Story time.
Chris Smith is here, and I think he may even be able to share some stories as well. But he wrote a book called Slow Church, which I love. He wrote it with a dear friend, John Pattison, who lives in Silverton, Oregon. This is a small town in Oregon, which is bucking some trends. It's actually growing. There's more and more folks moving in. And it is absolutely a parish. And John is a part of a local congregation that has been making this turn. They've been saying, how do we look at Silverton as a whole and try and knit together this fabric of care? And it's just beautiful because in a small town, everybody knows each other already. But John, who's somewhat new, he's only been there a couple of years, has been able to bring a lot of new insights and ideas to this congregation about what he's seen in other cities, in Portland, etc. And it's just really quite rich.
Yeah, that's excellent. And that was your transition to Chris's book, Slow Church.
If you want.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's an excellent transition. So yeah, we'll make a book transition. Congratulations. Thanks on the book. It's available over there. Amazon retailers all over the place.
Morning, Doug.
Good morning. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
Slow Church.
It's like the crock pot of churches.
The crock pot of churches. There you go.
It's the crock pot in this.
Yeah, definitely. The image that we want to leave people with actually at the end of the book is church as dinner table conversation.
I think I'm just hungry, but...
The back has this provocative little notion. High-speed internet, which some of us can only imagine at this point. High-speed internet.
That's what Wild Goose
This is the time to be pitching the benefit of slow when people are like, it's been killing me. High-speed internet, rapid rewards, quick trips, fast food, fast church. People have just assumed we're in a fast-paced society. Things are changing more rapidly than ever. Of course, we want church to match that. Why do you think church should be so not fast?
I think that we talk about the McDonaldization of society. George Ritzer wrote a book with that title, actually, The McDonaldization of Society. He talks about the ways in which the Western culture has conformed to to the pattern of the fast food industry, of things like predictability, quantifiable results, of reducing things to numbers, of efficiency in particular, and of control. That kind of goes through all the other ones. Of really
that's
designing
success.
that's success. And I think we need new ways of defining what we're about. And there's a lot of ways that our churches, that we believe, and we've argued in the book, that our churches have kind of fallen into the lockstep with this sort of McDonaldized culture, and all the ways in which the gospel has been reduced to 4 easy steps, to 40 days of purpose, or whatever. This program or that program, it seems to be a lot more about the marketing. And the subtitle of the book is Cultivating Community in the Patient Way of Jesus. We've very intentionally chosen the language of slow church, not slow Christianity or slow faith. We really believe that what God is doing in the world is centered around the gathering of a people, which began in Israel. Jesus, one of the first things he did when he started his ministry was to gather a little community of disciples around him. And then at Pentecost, the barrier of ethnicity was torn down, and the people of God were no longer defined by their ancestry.
That's gone really well. That hasn't happened since Pentecost. Christians organized around their tribal ancestry.
I think the New Testament.
I can't imagine what that would look like if churches.
I think we see in Paul's letters a lot the struggles that Jews and Gentiles had to actually work out, and I think that's really kind of what we recognize. All the sorts of fragmentations that we live within in our world, the fragmentation between work and home and church life, the fragmentation of racial fragmentation, economic fragmentation, political fragmentation, fragmentation of sexual identity, all these sorts of fragmentation that we live with.
Because there's something about the speed and the efficiency that really demands almost that you break things down into parts.
Sure,
and that's the fragmentation you're talking
that's
about.
Exactly. And we believe, we argue in the book that what God is doing is reconciling all creation. And we really believe that all creation. And if that's true, then we really need to be attentive to the ways that we've been fragmented, and really seek to put ourselves in a place and to be. Part of what's moving pushing the fragmentation is our transiency, our moving around from one place to another. So we talk about the practice of stability, both as individuals and as churches. I live in an urban neighborhood on the Near East Side of Indianapolis, and we see the great vacuum left in our neighborhood by churches that have moved out to the suburbs, and maybe even have moved again several times in their history, even further out from the city center. So I think it's really valuable for churches to stay rooted in their neighborhoods, and for people to remain committed for long periods of time to particular faith communities.
That's great. So back in the 50s, there was a real move to mechanization and to speed and to efficiency. Lots of things were happening, right? Highways and fast food and that whole movement. And as you rightly note, churches followed that.
Right.
But now there's a slow food movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? There's a slow travel movement. There's now a whole cultural shift to slow reading, to slow parenting.
Right.
And now there's slow church. So really, what you're doing is you're following that additional trend. And I'm bringing that up because you're not critiquing the notion that churches need to be so different from the rest of society just to be different.
Absolutely.
And that's the prophetic voice.
Absolutely.
You're saying, does that produce the kind of life that you want? And if not, then try this kind of life.
Sure, absolutely. And in fact, we intentionally try to shape the book, shape our conversation about slow church around the other slow movements, particularly slow food. Kind of at the heart of the book, kind of the key areas that we focus on, that we really think that the church needs to bear in mind as we move forward. Actually, it's based on the slow food movement. The slow food movement has the cardinal virtues of food that is good, clean, and fair. And we kind of reinterpreted those things in sort of theological language.
So it doesn't mean just eat the animals that run slow? I always thought the slow food movement was
the ones you could catch.
the ones you can catch. Like a lot of turtles. A lot of turtle soup.
And plants.
And plants, yeah, that's right. I'm a vegetarian because I don't want to chase my food.
That bird grows fast, but you can still catch it. But so we've reinterpreted good, clean, and fair in terms of ethics, ecology, and economy.
Yeah.
And we've really tried to kind of think about slow church in connection with these other. We found we've resonated a lot. John and I both have resonated a lot with the slow food and a lot of the other slow movements, and we think that there's a lot that the churches can learn from that.
You got all that in this little book? All that stuff?
Yeah.
Packed with goodness.
Congratulations. The book is called Slow Church, Cultivating Community in the Patient Way of Jesus.
Yeah.
We should have you back on the show because I want to talk a little bit about that patient
Sure.
way.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah,
it's always like, how long do I have to put up with you
Oh,
people?
yeah, absolutely. Can I tell a story?
Remember that line? Like, seriously.
Do I have a second to tell a quick story?
Yeah, please,
Yes.
please.
So we're part of Englewood Christian Church on the Near East Side, and this is a story that resonated with some people in the workshop that I did yesterday. But we've been in a practice of conversation every Sunday night. In the mid-1990s, we had a Sunday night service that was kind of a light version of the Sunday morning service. Like a lot of evangelical churches at that time, and people were losing interest in it, and we just decided to circle up chairs and have a conversation together.
Oh.
And it was just very,
Great idea.
very volatile at first. We were a very fragmented congregation because of our history. I don't have to, for the sake of time, I won't go into all that, but we were very fragmented. I mean, when we started to have the conversation, people were yelling at each other. People left the church. People left the Sunday night conversation. But we continued, and we've continued week after week after week over the last almost 20 years now. And what we found is that the practice of conversation has kind of, for one thing, has flowed outward from Sunday night, and really has been kind of a way of being together for us. But it hasn't magically transformed us so we all think exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
But what it's done for us is as we continued in this practice over time, it has helped us to trust one another and to be able to work together, even if we don't completely agree on what we need to do or how we need to do it.
That's fantastic. Is this book a giveaway? I know you published it like this. Can we give this to somebody here, or do you need this
Sure,
for something else?
absolutely.
Yeah?
All right.
All right.
Let's see. Should we make a...
Glory be to the train. Slow it down, fella. All right, we need to have
Patience. Be a patient.
Chris, do you have an idea of how we should give this book away? What should the giveaway be?
Ooh, that's a good
Should we ask
question.
a trivia
Oh,
question?
how about if we ask? Yeah, do you have one? Because I got a really good one, I think.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think it's really good.
Just go with it then.
Whose journey to get to the Wild Goose Festival took the longest?
There we go.
Who had the slowest journey here in the room? How long did it take you? May 18th.
Whoa, where did you come from?
That's excellent.
Wow, that is excellent.
Well,
I think she...
why don't you make your way up here? By the end of the show, you can have the you can get to the book.
No, that should have started
Thanks,
out.
One of the interesting things that neurologists are discovering, if you want to totally nerd out on neurology a bit here, is how it is that the human brain can sort out all the information that's coming in at one time. Right? If you can imagine all the feedback that you're taking into your brain right now, it's really significant. Like if you wanted to, you could pay attention to your heartbeat. You could just hear it, but you haven't been paying attention to your heartbeat. You could pay attention to your breathing. You could be paying attention to how your foot feels, but many of you, unless you have an itch or something, didn't pay attention to your foot. There are so many sounds around you, but you're sorting out those sounds. Like if one of you leans over right now and talks to someone next to you while I'm talking, your brain sorts out that you should listen to that input instead of the other input that's coming in, even though all the sound waves are hitting your ears. When you're walking through a crowd, you'll see 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, and then you'll see someone that you recognize, and you will pay attention to them and not notice everybody else that's around. It's amazing what your brain can do, and there's evolutionary reasons why that's necessary. And one of the things that our brains know to do is to pay attention to difference, because that's when your brain tells the rest of your system, perhaps something that you didn't expect is about to happen. There's an animal. So we tend to notice things that are a little bit different, a little bit off. It's really intriguing how we do that. Well, that brings me to Anna, because back in January, Anna and I were at a conference together, and Anna was sitting sort of down in the front, and she had hair with a blue mohawk sticking up off of it. And in that crowd, that was a thing of difference.
It was.
That was a noticeable standout thing. And I appreciate people who do that. I think there's something really fascinating about the people who don't follow convention, the people who don't do this. And so we struck up a little conversation, a little friendship.
We did.
And then walking by over here, she's now dropped the blue mohawk.
Well, the wild goose lack of mirrors and ability to kind of make my hair what it normally is has really hindered my ability to be that.
Oh boy. So
I
you
know,
to simplify
Mama.
for the goose.
It's awful.
The suffering.
It's killing me. It's my identity.
We must all really love this thing. We're camping, we're
right.
losing our mohawks.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, we just have facial zits just beginning to rise. I don't know if anybody else, but it's anybody else know?
Skin issues.
All right, so now the rest of you have anything brewing? Really? Wait till you get home. It's unbelievable.
We'll try not to mention it.
Yes.
We'll just look away. So you're saying that little mohawk thing you just throw together that you can just put that on at any point?
Yes. With the appropriate tools.
And here I thought it was like a big commit. Okay, so now you're running this tattoo shop over there, and I think that's really interesting. But you're not tattooing people.
I'm not personally, no.
Okay, so and you are somewhat you are tattooed yourself.
I am.
And that's a big deal for you. Like,
it is.
Like for some people, to get a tattoo was that mistake that happened that time.
Correct.
Right?
That was spring break that they want to not remember.
And I thought a rose back here, really. I didn't know there was a word for that. Or someone was, it's old school for people that traveled the world. They were sailors or something. But now tattooing has changed.
It has. It's definitely become a more mainstream aspect of community, and I think the thing that we noticed in our community and our parish, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee, is that there were a whole segment of people. We deal very much in the parish model, so it was very nice to hear the new parish up here talking about the book. We noticed that the evolution of self-expression in whatever form that took, whether it was piercings or tattooing or radical hairstyles, continue to fill in the blank, was really something that people were using to self-identify as well as set themselves apart, which is what we're really all trying to do. We're all trying to find ways in which we can make ourselves stand out and be important to others. And so this Faith Marks movement started because we realized...
That's what you call it.
Faith Marks.
That is clever. One word, capital M?
One word, capital M, capital F.
That's perfect.
Kind of cool like that. So the Faith Marks movement started because we were finding that as we asked people to tell the stories about their tattoos, if someone has a tiger or Mickey Mouse.
Hold on, we have to have a
tiger.
I have a tiger on my thigh. Did you know that, or are you just like prophetic like that? Are you just making fun of me without me knowing it?
I come to serve. I come to serve.
Somebody has a tiger, let's say.
Someone has a tiger, someone has Mickey Mouse, or someone has a character. Oftentimes the story behind that tattoo isn't as meaningful. Often, if that person has a cross or a dove or a line of scripture tattooed on themselves somewhere.
In some ancient language, a lot of people
sometimes,
do that.
But we found in conversations that the spirituality of tattooing and the ways in which people express that spirituality, often people mark themselves as a means of remembrance, whether it's to remind themselves of something that has happened in the past that they have come through, whether it is to continue to remind themselves that on their knees is where they get the most done, with their talking with their God, whatever it is that they use the ink for, that the stories behind spiritual tattoos were remarkable to us. So we set out to find models in the Chattanooga area initially, but it became a worldwide phenomenon of people who had faith marks and wanted to tell their story. So the art show is a collection of 22 persons who have inked themselves in some spiritual way. We didn't require that they be Christian. We just require that they have a spiritual story to tell. So we have a Jewish person, we have a Buddhist, we have a Wiccan in the show. We have a lot of Christians.
Is it a broom handle?
It's not a broom handle, no. Very earthy, very cool.
Come on.
You can come look at it though.
I will.
And what the show did though in Chattanooga was when we unveiled it, we actually launched the show during Holy Week last year and did a huge true art show gallery opening. So wine and cheese, big gallery, lots of PR and newspaper coverage and radio coverage. And all of these people from the community who said, wait a minute, I know my neighbor has tattoos and he's just a weird dude who doesn't do anything except for go to work every day and then smoke pot on his back porch at night. Maybe he has a story to tell me.
Isn't that interesting?
And so this show has become a movement for both those who think that the church is marginalizing them because of how they look, as well as a way in which other communities can start to have conversations with people that would not normally darken their door. So the show is traveling. The show is a movement show. It's gone to a lot of college campuses. It goes to churches where churches want to set it up and kind of host their own opening and bring it to their communities and have conversations with people who have faith marks and want to tell their story. And so in addition to the show traveling, we've done a whole digital movement. We've got over 7,000 fans on Facebook. I get submissions every day from all over the world.
Wow.
People sending me their photos and saying, this is my ink. This is what it means to me. Will you put me on your website?
That's
And
great.
so,
if people here wanted to have the show in their town or at their place or
you
their
just have to
college or something?
Come see us.
Just come see
Come
us.
see us.
And you would go yourself? Like
I
you
would go.
travel.
Yes, we do.
That's
We'll
awesome.
go and do art talks. We'll set up the show and then do kind of an art opening talk and kind of explain the
So for
history
people
of the
that are
show.
here, they'll know that it's right behind
It's
this
right behind
tent.
us,
But people
right.
that are listening around the world and perhaps on the space station, do they can they access that by the Facebook group or is there a
They
website?
can. We're Faith Marks Photography on Facebook. It's ourfaithmarks.com. Ourfaithmarks.com on the
Oh, you
internet.
are? Mhm.
And we can. And we're actually, for those of you that are here at Wild Goose, if you have a faith mark, we are taking live photography at the booth. We'll give you a piece of paper. You write your story. We're going to go back next week and put an entire Wild Goose gallery together
That's a great
of
idea.
faith marks that are here at the show and tell everyone's Wild Goose faith mark story
That's really
in a
great.
gallery on the
Now-
So
website.
I have a question. Do these have to be specifically religious symbols, or they just
Spiritual.
need to have a sense of spirituality
Correct.
to the individual?
Correct. A sense
So-
of spirituality to the individual.
So, for example, I have a willow tree that I just had put on tattooed back there. And it has its spiritual significance to me,
course.
but one wouldn't necessarily attribute that
Right.
as
Yeah, you'll walk through the show, you'll see tattoos of hummingbirds. You'll see tattoos of roses. And then you'll see literal tattoos of scripture passages or crosses or think crowns, things that are very literal when it comes to Christian spirituality. But no, there's no need for the image to be literal. It's truly, and that's what was so brilliant about kind of asking to have these conversations about what does your faith mark mean? Because those stories are remarkable. They really, there's the best story in the show is a girl named Mandy who was involved in gang activity for her entire teen and young adult years. And when she finally came to the church in her mid-20s, she went and had every single one of her gang tattoos covered up with spiritual-based imagery.
Wow.
And so we've got her images in the show, but even better than the image is the story that goes along with it. And every canvas in there has a story attached to it. You can read the stories, you can experience the beautiful art, and then you can come and have your own picture taken.
I love
So
that.
I can't keep you too much longer, but people often say, I'd kind of like to have a tattoo, but I don't know what I would ever want to have on my body forever.
That long.
Do you help people figure that out as a part of this whole thing? Like if someone was thinking that here and they're like, I don't know who to talk to about it, because
Yeah, that's
kind of working on it. Do you do consultations over there?
I'm an idea person.
Yeah.
I get in trouble a lot for that, though.
Oh.
I'm one of these people that I have an idea and someone says, Anna, really, we can't go that big, so just stop.
Yeah.
I think that there's always a way in which you can figure out what you want, how you want to go about it. There's a lot of literal and non-literal ways in which you can illustrate the message that you're trying to get across or the remembrance that you want to have. And so, if someone wants to talk about it, we'll absolutely talk. That's one of the things that I found is that you have a perspective on ink and tattooing that you didn't have before
great.
when you start to have these stories. But if someone wants to talk, I'll talk to anybody.
Anna, thanks. Good
Thanks.
work. Tia is a musician,
Yes.
and you're gonna play a little with us.
Yeah, just a
for
little
us.
bit. So, the Goose has been very kind to me. I've been here since year one. And actually, the song I'm gonna play.
But you come back and forth, like you didn't come year one
You don't
and just
live
stay.
here
You
year-round?
just sort of trolled. Yeah, you sort of dug into the ground.
Wow.
Come
Yeah.
back every year. But,
Where do you come from? Where's
Athens. Well, I'm from New Jersey, but I live in Athens, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
I just graduated from UGA.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm the managing editor of a small newspaper in Georgia, and then kind of do this when I have the time.
Yeah.
But the Goose is always a great outlet for that.
You're from New Jersey. Who are your spiritual or who are your musical influences from New Jersey? Like, would there be a famous New Jersey musician
And
that?
I did have a little Bon Jovi following.
You had a Bon Jovi thing?
Just
did.
a
Okay.
tiny bit. But so I don't know if my music sounds anything like Bon Jovi, but
Well, we'll find that out. Tell us about how you do music and why you do it. What are
I
you
write
doing with
it as a catharsis. I think I stopped writing for a very long time and then started about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've just been very preoccupied with the notion of home and what that entails for people. For someone like me and a lot of people here who share their stories, home, where we come from, a lot of us felt disconnected from our given faith traditions and by extension our families. And
Nice.
Things like this create moments of home. For me, experiencing home has only ever come in momentary, fleeting glimpses, and they disappear as quickly as they arrive. But finding the familiar in unfamiliar places and connecting with people that by all reasons
Yeah.
should not be
Well, that's
family.
interesting because there's a lot of history to that. Like if you go around the United States, especially on the East Coast, where some of the first parts of the immigrant populations of the late 19th century and early 20th century were arriving, they tended to name towns like New this and New that,
Yeah.
right? New York
Yeah.
and New England and
Better
New
version,
Jersey,
yeah.
right? Like that kind of thing because people wanted to connect to some sort of place of home, and that really is a lost sense for a lot of people, right? When you grew up in New Jersey, live in Georgia, travel to North Carolina, like what home, and so we have this little colloquialism, right? That home is where
the heart is.
The heart is.
Where
I
you
don't
know
even
the
what
radio
that-
stations are.
That's
Oh,
right.
that's even better.
Yeah, home is where you know the radio stations.
Where you know the radio stations, or you know
And
the
to
call
this day,
letters.
I go to New Jersey, Georgia. I still have no idea. I've lived in Georgia for 10 years, but I go home to New Jersey. I know where
Yeah.
all the stations are.
That's good. And so you're tapping into that a little. Is this song
and
you're
it's
going to do for us?
yes,
One of
it's
those?
actually called "Can I Call You Home," and I wrote it at the first Wild Goose Festival. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's just about that and taking it to a place of faith when you didn't have an avenue to express the faith that you had. It's connected to the community that you were raised in, but somehow different, and trying to find a place to be authentic and at home in your own
Great.
faith. So,
Tia Lynn, could we introduce you and then have people applaud as if they're about to see their most favorite New Jersey musician ever and
Sure.
jump to their feet and cheer for you and all that stuff? All right. So get over there and get ready, and then we'll introduce you so that when they're cheering, you can have that moment. Ladies and gentlemen, you've waited are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, you've waited all these years, and here she is from New Jersey, Tia Lynn.
All right, thank you. This is Can I Call You Home? It's still early, so my voice might give a little bit. I was born with this ache inside. It echoes through the chambers of my mind, and as I grew, I always knew I didn't belong. But oh, I sang along. My body stayed, but my heart, it ran away deep inside myself, hiding from everyone else but you. I could never hide from you. Somehow you always knew that sticks and stones may break bones, but words can break a soul. And all I've ever wanted was a place to call home. How is it we long the most? Well, the things we we've never known. Can I call you home? Can I call you home? I've lived in houses built with wood, built with bricks and stones, but a home is a kindred soul, housed in flesh and bones. Why is it we miss the most the ones we've never known? Can I call you home? 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 Would you be my own, my very home? And from our heads to our toes, with our skin and bones, with our blood, hearts, and very souls, let's build a home. Let's build a home. 'Cause sticks and stones may break bones, but words can break a soul. And all I've ever wanted was a place to call home. How is it we long the most for the things we've never known? Can I call you home? Can I call you home? Can I call you home? Can I call you home?
Newspaper editor TLM. From the greatest places. It's just really great. Billy, are you coming up? There are a lot of efforts that are represented here at the Wild Goose Festival and in a lot of our lives and communities for how people help around the world. And Bread for the World is one of those. And you work for Bread for the World, with Bread for the World.
Yes.
You are Bread for the World.
Let's hope not.
That is my
Don't
contribution
claim it.
to the potluck. I'm bringing
The guy
myself
brought the bread.
as bread for the world.
Billy, for those who don't know the good work that Bread for the World does, what do you all do?
Tell us.
You provide bread for the world?
In a certain sense, as many of us know, there's a great amount of people who suffer from hunger and malnutrition in the world today. Bread for the World is an organization which has existed for the last 40 years and works in Washington to fight for legislative change so that way we can provide the right systems to help feed people. So although we don't go out and physically hand bread to people, our work has helped millions and millions more people eat because of the changes in the systems and policies.
So in this case, this is not frontline work. This is trying to advocate on behalf of the efforts in the United States to be more involved and engaged at the United States government level, to be involved and engaged in providing for food needs around the world.
That's exactly right. Our founder, Art Simon, was a Lutheran pastor in New York, and day in and day out was dealing with feeding people. And he came to the realization that it would be a lot more effective to address the root causes of hunger than to simply keep putting band-aids on those.
He was trying to solve stomachs. His stomach problem.
Yeah, we just cut people's stomachs out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's a stomach removal business first.
Yes. Or medical industry.
Yeah. So he's saying, look, if we could advocate on behalf, in the United States, if we could advocate on behalf of people having more resources available to them, that would solve hunger.
That's definitely a piece, but you also have to address some of the systemic injustices that people are dealing with. So providing access to resources, but also making sure that people's rights are defended. We believe that food is a human right, and there are many things that can get in the way, whether it's somebody's legal status, if they're a returning citizen, if they are stuck in a system of poverty. We're trying to identify and think and research what are the best ways to help get people both in this country and around the world into a more secure place so they can become productive members of society. And we're hoping to end hunger by the year 2030. So that's the goal.
So exploring the issues of populations where there's a lot of hunger and saying what of these issues can we try to address to try to indirectly.
So we're always working on different things. Right now we're working on trying to reform the way that we do food aid. So, about half of 1% of the U.S. budget goes to, relief around the world. It's not a lot, but just that small amount is really ineffectively used. So we're trying to address that. We're working with issues of immigration reform. We're working with the criminal justice system. We're working with environmental impacts, which
So when Bread for the World comes here, dealing with significant issues like hunger in the United States and around the world, and trying to interface with the systems of the federal government and how the federal policy affects it, those are some big things, right?
Yes.
What are you doing at a little festival like this with a booth? Like what can a person do here and engage in that in those kinds of issues? Because you wouldn't be here if it was just get powerful people to have lunches together and talk about these things.
Well, there's a lot of ways to do advocacy. There are some who have the monetary resources to just buy policy.
Yeah.
We don't have that. What we have is actually a coalition of people of faith. So locations like Wild Goose allow me to meet faith leaders and people who are committed to following Jesus and encourage them to make advocacy a part of their spiritual life, so that they can go home. And what we encourage people to do is get your community together and prayerfully write letters to your members of Congress. It's actually the coalition of voices around this nation which has given Bread its authority on the Hill. So for 40 years we've brought together Catholics and Protestants, Republicans and Democrats, people of faith across the spectrum to say we may disagree on issues of theology and politics, but one thing that we can agree on is that food is a human right that we need to protect. And as people who follow Jesus, who spoke very clearly on feeding people and made that a huge part of his ministry, we want to follow in those footsteps and really make the right to food something that's protected for all people.
So people here can stop by your booth and get signed up, and you can help someone who's is a pastor of a church or a faith leader of a community. You can help them to find ways to engage their community in that advocacy?
Oh, we can do that real well.
You can do that real well. I bet you can make that happen. And if they sign up for your email list, do you send them lots of stuff? Do you send them a couple of things? Are you on them every day? What's the...
Well, you can get as much stuff as you want.
Oh, really?
If you sign up, you'll get some updates. One of the key things is if you give us your zip code, then if there is a piece of legislation that is coming up, especially if you're in a key district, we'll have you call that.
Key district meaning if your representative is a swing person, is a swinger, you'll use that in some way.
But yeah, you bribe them with the information about the
they're swinging.
And then, you can. Sometimes people are parts of committees, or if there are key moments in time, and we've found that leveraging the voice of people of faith at those key moments can actually have dramatic impacts on the sort of legislation that gets passed. We just had an amendment within the last 2 weeks added to the agriculture appropriations bill. I know that's
thrilling.
Very, very boring.
But you advocated for an amendment to the ag bill?
But it funds $80 million of local food sourcing as part of our aid. It's huge.
And it's a big deal.
All the Bread for the World members who are out there and called. So thank you.
So even though it seems so nerdy and boring to people, it really matters, right?
It does.
And you have to get people doing that. Are you going to ask them for money? When they
We will
sign up
take
on
your
your email
money
list?
eventually,
Is that a
but
thing?
that's not the first thing.
Oh, you wait a while?
We'll give you a couple emails.
You
We're
go
trying
to
to get
dinner
you
a couple of times, and then
if we think you're loaded, yeah, we'll hit you up. But
But it is, I mean, letter
So have
writing
a
really
Comcast.
does make a difference, right? I mean, it's hard to believe sometimes that it really makes a difference, but
yeah, letter writing is the second most impactful thing you can do as a citizen. So you've been granted.
Oh, it's depressing sounding, really?
Well,
Letter writing is the second most impactful thing you can do as a citizen?
if you want to influence your policy,
a letter,
you can.
what's the first most? What's the most?
Meet them face to face.
Oh, really?
Right?
Go to their house.
That would be
give them
impactful.
some
Show
money.
up.
Excuse me,
Excuse
sir.
me.
I'm a citizen. You're arrested. But
So letter writing, email writing, campaigning.
All these
How about
things are
snarky
important.
Facebook status updates with your representative?
That works
Does that
too.
work?
Actually, if you tweet your member of Congress, that
Really?
counts as advocacy. So I would say every time something comes up, if you're really lazy and have a Twitter account, just tweet your person. That's something. It's not as great as a handwritten letter, but
You can see all the really lazy Twitter guys.
just do it every day.
That's fantastic. Billy, thanks for all your work. Where do they find the Bread for the World booth here at the festival?
We are just past that hybrid lemon corn husk.
On the other side of the lemonade stand.
The big yellow apparatus.
Change the world. Go to the lemonade stand and find Bread for
Or
the
you
World.
can go find us on
the internet?
the tubes of the internet.
Yeah.
We have a very complicated URL. It's bread.org.
Bread.org.
Yes.
Wow, way to go. You got in early.
You can find that.
That's fantastic.
We've been around
Tweet
for
for
40 years.
bread, people.
Leslie
Tweet for bread.
Gaspar is going to join us.
Thanks, Billy.
Hi, Leslie. How are you? Leslie lives in Asheville. I almost said Nashville. That wouldn't be very nice. I did say Nashville, I think. Hey, good to see you. This is Leslie, and Leslie is involved in lots of things and has been involved in lots of things in your life. And we do a little work together on this thing called the Cana Initiative. But tell people what you did before that. Tell them what you did. Because didn't you work for...
Life before
I
Cana.
worked for a lot of magazines. I lived in New York City. I had moved to New York City when I was 16 years old, back in the 70s. Had left school after the 9th grade.
You moved to New York City back in the 70s as a 16-year-old?
In 1974, yeah.
That's
It was the last-
legendary.
it was
Do you
the
have
last-
tattoos from that period?
It was before
did you
the
faith
tattoo.
mark yourself?
I did not faith mark myself. It was the last great era for people to move up there, have no money, get a crummy apartment and a crummy day job, and be a musician or a writer or whatever it was on the side. I got to see that whole punk scene thing go down on the yeah. So
Good
yes,
times.
I've had, and then I worked in magazine publishing mostly. I had a bunch of side careers on the side, but I worked at a lot of magazines. I worked at Forbes and Newsweek and Time and Variety and Business Week and Martha Stewart Living. And
Are any of those magazines still around?
many
A
of
couple
them are.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are.
That's
Although
really changed
they're
that
all
world.
going down,
Yeah.
I think. Yes, and the last one was at Oprah's magazine, and that was a really great way to go out of that industry.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
an incredible place to work.
Yeah, that's super fun. And do you want to talk about the Cana Initiative a little bit?
Sure.
Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
So the Cana Initiative is this effort that wants to bring together people who are doing interesting and important work around the world and create collective action together by convening and advocating and networking. And I do a bunch of work in that, and so does Leslie. Can you talk a little bit about what for you, just a snippet or two, is meaningful about why we would want to have a generous Christianity be organized in a way that could be meaningful in the world?
Well, from a really personal standpoint, I hate the term newbie, but I'm a freshly minted Christian at the age of 56, which is not something I ever expected, but here I am. I was baptized a couple of months ago at the Haywood Street congregation in Nashville, if anybody's from around there. And I feel like I'm kind of a conduit between the world of faith and the world of not faith, and that the obstacles and the bad faith between those two groups at this point are so huge. I'm really hoping to, if some of my friends could understand that all Christians weren't stupid or crazy, it would be a big move.
That's a
forward.
starting point.
It really would.
Great work. Yeah.
And from the other standpoint, I feel like showing just my presence at places like Cana, where there's all these really brilliant people who are completely steeped in the culture of institution and organizing, but all within their faith world. And I feel like my being there is just a way of saying, the rest of us are out here too. Let's try and keep each other in mind and begin to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about how you saw that, like when you were working in the different media outlets. From that angle, without a dog in the hunt for Christianity or for faith at all, how is it thought about? How is it seen? How is it heard from that kind of industry side?
But really the only thing I can tell you is that at Oprah's magazine, kind of on my way out, Occupy had just come into being, and I was really excited by it, and I was looking for a way to maybe write about it, and I found Shane Claiborne's name had come up in that discussion, I guess because of that Jubilee he did on Wall Street many years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I thought, well, maybe I could write about Shane for the magazine, because they did activist profiles. And so when I talked to editors, they said, well, our marketing studies say that our readers want stories about women. And Oprah's not a church girl anymore, so I don't know if she would do a story about a Christian. I was like, okay, so Eckhart Tolle, okay, this was before Rob Bell got onto the TV show. And so I was really stunned to find that now in Essence, which is a black women's magazine, they do lots of stuff that's Christian related. But I think in a lot of other magazines that there's an invisible barrier between Christian and the rest of them.
And is it hostile, or is it just that's not our thing, we don't pay attention to it?
In my experience, which wasn't huge, it was the latter. It wasn't particularly hostile. It was just kind of like in that New York media world, for those people, it's just irrelevant. They don't know that it's relevant yet.
They don't know.
They don't know yet.
Yeah. As that great philosopher once said, you don't know what you don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, the great philosopher
Donald Rumsfeld.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the stuff that gets you. You moved from New York City to Asheville.
Yep.
How's that?
It was being in the South. I'm still having a little culture shock. I'm originally from Texas, so I sort of knew. But, I lived in the only precinct outside of Minnesota that voted for Walter Mondale in 1981.
Yeah. There we go.
Way to go.
Used to be a part of the whole kind of pinko New Yorker thing, and even Asheville, which is a blue dot on a red state.
Sure.
I walk into a lot of places where people are having conversations that I need to just shut up about.
So now that you're living in Asheville, you used to be part of the New York media elites who didn't understand or pay attention to or recognize or consider so much a lot of the parts of the world where faith is significant. Now you're living in a place where faith is sort of rooted in. How do they think about New York media types? Like, is it the same thing? Like, we don't know those people?
Yeah, certainly. I think so, except that probably, well, what people know is TV shows and movie representations of those media types, which have a little bit of truth in them, but are also flights of fancy. And, you can't make a TV show about what it is to make a magazine, because everybody would be bored. They'd be asleep in 3 minutes.
Right.
The
kid become radio-like.
That's right. And so I think that it's unfortunate that those worlds seem so cut off from each other. I will tell you, though, that a couple of times in talking to editors, as my idea began to grow and I began to realize that that I had a bigger story to tell here. It wasn't about Shane or any one person, that there was something happening that we couldn't quantify or put a thing around, and how could I tell that story? And a couple of the editors said, that sounds so interesting, that sounds so exciting. And so that again makes me hopeful that there will be a way to tell that story.
It just feels like the starting point sometimes, just meeting people, right? Just knowing, just paying attention or presencing or something, that's so often the place that we need to start with a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah, and for me, Cana was the exciting thing about that is that I see all these, like you guys were talking about with the new parish, there are all these beautiful things happening at the local level, but nobody knows what anybody else is doing. And the idea of finding a connective tissue to bring people so that they can support and help each other, and also so that we can begin to craft a media presence that will counter the narrative of the religious right and say, we're Christians, and we're not about any of those things that you think we are.
Yeah, great. Leslie, thanks.
Thank you,
CanInitiative.org.
Keep up the good work.
You can find all that. Two more guests for you to meet during our time. Kelly Bean is a longtime friend of mine, and I hope it's going to become a longtime friend of yours. And Kelly has written a book that has, I think, a wonderfully provocative title to it, and a really provocative idea called How to Be Christian Without Going to Church. Sort of taking this idea, and for some people, I say it's provocative because for a lot of people, they just assume that because that's been their lived experience for a very long time, right? They're Christian and they don't go to church. But there are others for whom, and some of our guests here today, they have made the important connection between faithful living and faithful engagement in a local community synonymous or necessary. And you've thought that before.
Of course.
In your life? Yeah, you've been there. And now you've written this book, How to Be Christian Without Going to Church, the unofficial guide to alternative forms of Christian community. What kind of trouble are you brewing up here, Kelly Bean, with that
What are you up to over there?
fun little smile of yours?
Well, this book is part memoir. It's a story that has unfolded in my life without a strategic plan, but it really is my story. I've led a faith community in my home for 24 years, and then founded Intentional Community over the past 6 years. And initially, those endeavors were, that community was cultivated as a church within a church. And at some point, that church closed its doors, big church closed its doors, and the community chose to continue on together before. So my work and my passion and my joy has been cultivating small communities, some short-term, some long-term, some deeply rooted and some around single purpose for a long time in a lot of different arenas. In the meantime, then I've run into growing numbers of people who are having the experience of, for whatever reason, a whole variety of reasons, no longer finding their place within the walls of the institution of church, within that structured expression of church, but who, instead of leaving faith, are leaving the church and then exploring new ways to go forward and make community. And so this book captures a lot of wonderful stories.
So it sounds like you believe and have experienced that people stop being part of local communities of faith for lots of reasons, and that becomes a good thing in their spiritual life. Like, as opposed to, well, here's how you get along if you don't have that, right? Like, trying to, like living on a juice fast or something, right?
Or falling off the wagon.
Yeah, falling off the wagon. You're saying, no, there's actually a kind of vital spirituality that can exist for someone once you get outside of those constraints.
Yeah, because you can't, if you're going to be live a vital faith life and you don't have a structure to do within, you're no longer a consumer. You really have to engage with intention. So more, over and over I heard people say, I've grown more in 10 years outside the church than I did 30 years in the church. These things have...
Because you see some being a passive recipient, being somebody who has to create the kind of path that you're walking? Is that part of it?
Often, there's so many different stories.
Yeah.
I think bottom line is that, first of all, I don't believe the church is dying. I believe the church is changing in some really significant ways. And the implications of that are amazing. And I don't advocate that people leave a church structure that they're growing in and thriving in, or they have the ability to engage and help others come along and grow and thrive in. But there are just so many people. I really believe that it is something that God is up to now. That it's not a movement, but it's actually something that's that the Holy Spirit is bubbling up as people are finding new ways to go forward and live faith together with us.
So you're not one of these people going around being like, stop going to church. It's such you're not trying to get people to stop doing it. You're trying to say people are already not doing that, and they need a little partnership and community. So the subtitle, which you can never blame an author for the title, but I know in this case you got the title you wanted. But the subtitle is also the unofficial guide to alternative forms of Christian community. How else are people finding community if it's not in what a lot of people would recognize as a church kind of thing? Like what do they do?
Well, there's certainly things you'd expect, like intentional community, house church, Bible studies, accountability groups, all those things that have been around for a long time. But there really is incredibly vital community that's engaging people that have no orientation ever in their life around church. So circles around art and music, certainly around social activism, around travel. A lot of my work right now is engaging sharing communities in the global north with sharing communities in East Africa, and the kind of community that forms around those cross-cultural shared experiences together that's really transformative and takes people on a spiritual journey is amazing. So frankly, almost anything could work, as long as people are traveling together and there's a sense of going towards goodness in the world, and Jesus is present there.
So some people would say, Kelly, and I'm sure you've heard this, look, I get it that people don't go to church, and I get it that people are spiritual. I heard this yesterday in the bookstore, because I was standing with somebody who saw your book title and said, like, that kind of, I just saw the title, How to Be Christian Without Going to Church, and they're like, I think you can be spiritual, but I don't know if you can be Christian. Like, part of it being Christian thing, for that view, is that's connected to church. Like, those two things go together. It's like being, like saying I'm a soccer player, but I'm not on a team or something, right? They're like, no, you gotta, that's part of the deal. So are you just saying how to be a spiritual person without being Christian? Is that really what you're getting at? Or are you saying, no, how to be Christian without being, you're not saying that.
No, I'm not. Although, being a spiritual person is a great thing.
Yes.
So,
you're saying something different than that.
No.
This isn't the nuns or whatever.
Yeah, no.
Or it is the nuns. The nods. The non-affiliated.
It isn't.
Okay,
no,
it isn't.
Yeah, it's just, we have to go together. There's, we're, as human beings, we're created for community. God is Trinitarian, exists in community, and when we come together, that's where it's all at. So, I really like going to the ocean and climbing trees, and and I meet God there too. But if we're going to be Christian, I think we can't go it alone. We've got to be together in some fashion.
Congratulations on the book. Are there any copies left here? Have they sold out already? People should hurry.
There's a few left in the tent.
There might be a couple left in the tent. They should get over it. They buy. Yeah, I see. You're a new-time author. This is what happens to first-time authors. They're like, I saw somebody with my book. Like, they bought it. Yeah.
I wrote it and somebody bought it.
That's why they print lots of copies. It's it's really good that they do that. So they can pick it up over there. Congratulations on the book. You'll be around if people want to ask you about that? Great, thanks. Our final minutes here. Josie Stone is playing music over here, and someone nominated you to come and share music with us.
Yes, it's such an honor.
You're going to take us out
with
a little bit of music. What's the McAfee School of Theology that you're wearing
You're touting.
Yeah, this was at the top of my laundry pile.
All right.
I graduated back in 2012. It's a CBF seminary in Atlanta, Georgia, part of University.
What's CBF?
Cooperative Baptist Fellowship.
Cooperative Baptist Fellowship.
They're cool.
Cooperative Baptist.
And
Jumbo shrimp.
I do have to say, with my personal journey, now I'm in the discernment process towards becoming an Episcopal priest. So
See, that's what all the Baptists are afraid of.
Is sort of like
you send them to the Cooperative Baptist, and then they're going to become an Episcopal priest. Way to go, Cooperative Baptist. But you do music. You look like an Episcopal priest. Actually, you got the. You'll do well. You got the vibe.
Yeah, so I go into the moniker Beehive Champions. I just came out with an album on Thursday.
You did?
I finished mixing it Wednesday at 11:30, and then hopped on a truck all the way up here. So
did they know you were on the truck, or did you jump on the back of the truck?
No, it was with my friend Terry Ramon Smith, who's an awesome
guy.
From the
Ramones? You just put out is it available? Can people buy it from you?
beehivechampions.bandcamp.com. It's actually going to be the first of 4, and 100% of the proceeds is going to buy underwear, socks, pants for our friends on the street. I could not think of a better way to do a first fruits to God.
You're selling albums to buy underwear for people that live on the streets.
Well, yes, because I am blessed, and the song I want to play for
you get free shirts from the McAfee people. You're paying it forward.
So this song I want to play is called "The Bittersweet." It's about last year when my life was falling apart, and y'all at Wild Goose really surrounded me and held me and prayed over me as I cried as my life fell apart. So,
Josie Stone, thanks for all that you do. Thanks for this album. Thanks for taking us out here. And if people want to hear you play, where are you playing after this?
Noon at the Iron Horse Tavern.
Right.
Noon at the Iron Horse, where they can pick up a top quality lunch with air conditioning and Wi-Fi. It's right in town.
Yes, indeed.
Tell them I sent you. I'm trying to get a free meal over there. I don't know over there you're playing. They have a little performance cafe. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lovely spot.
Josie Stone, where are you from?
I'm from Atlanta.
Atlanta,
Georgia.
Are there any famous musicians from Atlanta that people would know?
Outkast. One of my favorite musicians is Troy Bronsink. His stuff is catchy.
So I'm going to introduce you, and people are going to cheer as if you are their favorite band from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're proud to present to you Josie Stone. I'll tell people you're playing Tia's guitar.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Tia's
it's a
great.
borrowed guitar for clean underwear.
Am I making any sense as I repent for sins I did not commit? Is it too late to come alive, making home in this world when I feel so alone? Regret imprisons me. I try to drown it out, but I'm the one drowning. Oh, how I backslid into a personal hell that I do not belong in. Whoa, 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 whoa. It feels like 2 steps back and 1 step forward. Where do I belong? Consider my pride. It holds me back from reaching out, and I suffocate under my distress, and I digress into my own mess. Because these lies, they tell me that I am unacceptable, unable to be liberated from this personal hell. I taste the bittersweet, cannot taste my identity, not to my own dignity. Is this some sick tragedy? Is my life one epic joke? Try to step up only to choke these tears behind my eyes. Well, up till I can't deny, then no, I'm not alright. Stand and face myself, the self that I despise, sad, complacent, suffering. Kneel at the cross of Christ, who proclaims me beloved and worthy of a love beyond all measure. Oh, how sweet it is to know that I am treasured, buried in the tomb of my burdens, defeated by only wounds, and I stand triumphant. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, divine love that liberates. Thank you.
Potential future priest, Josie Stone. Congratulations. Yeah, right. Hey, folks, thanks. BigBandRadio.com. Thanks for being here. Enjoy your day.
Pay attention, people.
Pay attention. Pay attention. See you around.